Like the Supreme Court justices are getting ready to overturn the Obergefell decision. That's the decision that granted the right to gay marriage to queer people all across the United States, instead of just in the 15 or 20 or some odd blue states that had already granted that right to people. And the clue to this came in the dissent written by Justice Sonia Sotomayor in the Department of State versus Munoz decision that was handed down day before yesterday, I believe. Maybe it was Friday. Yeah, it must have been Friday. The first sentence of her dissent is literally lifted from the Obergefell decision, which is, I think, Sotomayor's way of like waving a flag, a pride flag, but a flag, and saying, look out, this is coming. Now, the Obergefell decision was a 5-4 decision. And at that time, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was on the court. She's been replaced by Amy Coney Barrett, which is a major change in the direction of the court. And Anthony Kennedy, who was an advocate for gay marriage, even though he was a Republican appointee, he was on the court. He was the guy whose son signed off on $1 billion worth of Deutsche Bank loans to Donald Trump that I believe Donald Trump threatened to publicize or somehow otherwise harm Kennedy's son as a way of convincing Kennedy to retire from the court, because Kennedy was in great health. He's still around. I mean, he's just doing his thing. But he's gone now, replaced by Brett Kavanaugh. These were both members of the court who should not have, in my opinion, should not have been replaced. I don't think Kennedy retired, voluntarily, frankly. I think he was blackmailed into it. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, within weeks of the election. And traditionally, that means that Supreme Court justice is going to be up to the next president. But of course, Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump jammed Amy Coney Barrett through the Senate. But in any case, she says basically this is what's coming. She says the majority could have easily disposed of this case, the Munoz case, by just saying, the guy Munoz got all the due justice, all the due process that he was due. She writes, that could and should have been the end of it. Instead, the majority swings for the fences. In other words, what they're doing in this case is they're setting up the rationale to overturn gay marriage. Now, she writes, the majority made the same fatal error it made in Dobbs, requiring too careful a description of the claimed fundamental liberty interest. And by the way, this is the same issue that had to do with Obergefell. Basically, Sonia Sotomayor is telling us this is coming. They are coming for gay marriage. Not this year, but next year. And the Republican Party is with them. Aaron Blake, writing for the Washington Post, GOP support for same-sex marriage has declined from a high of 55% in 21-22 to 49%, less than half in 2023, and now to 46% in 2024, a 9-point drop over just 2 years. What has happened? Well, we're starting to see right-wing hate media talk about the queer community in slanderous terms, in negative terms. We've had all this rhetoric about groomers and drag queens and trans people and trans sports and trans kids in bathrooms and all this, basic hate mongering that's been coming out of the right now as just a steady stream of hate for, the better part of a decade now in a big way. And I'm telling you, 1 year from now, gay marriage is no longer going to be legal across the United States unless Congress and the president next spring, make some big changes in the Supreme Court. And I'd be astonished if they happen that fast. The percentage of Republicans who describe same-sex relations, not marriage, but just, people having relationships as, quote, morally acceptable was at 56% 10 years ago. It's now 40%. 6 out of 10 Republicans, 3 out of 4 Republicans, no, what's that? 3 out of 5 Republicans say that gay relationships are morally unacceptable. I mean, you got the Don't Say Gay bill down in Florida. You got all this talk about groomers. You got all these efforts to restrict trans rights. By the way, the Supreme Court just picked up a case that has to do with trans rights. And everybody is fully expecting that they're going to strike down the ability of trans people, particularly minors, to become trans people. You know, so much for small government, right? So much for the Republican mantra that we believe in limited government. They want government big enough to fit inside women's uteruses, and they want government big enough to tell you what you and your children can do, and how you have to live, and who you can marry, and who you can have relationships with. This is not limited government. This is not, small government. This is not conservative government. This is radical, reactionary, hate-filled Republican rhetoric. And it is damaging the lives of people in the United States. We are soon going to be back to a point where one of the highest public health risks for the queer community is suicide. I mean, we never left it, really. Gay, trans, lesbian youth are more likely to commit suicide than pretty much anybody else. It's been that way forever. But it did get better there for a while. And trans people came out. Louise and I had it when we lived in Washington, D.C. A real good friend of ours who we lived in a boat there. And he had a boat. He was in the Coast Guard. And when Obama became president and when he came out in favor of gay marriage and all that kind of stuff, our friend he came out as trans. He said, that's it. I'm going to grow my hair out and I'm going to become a woman. And she is now. She changed her name. And it was like we all celebrated it. Well, and the Coast Guard was like, okay, we're good with this. Well, our friend and others like her have to be just terrified by this. Can you imagine? If you were born in the wrong body and you knew it your whole life and you finally had a moment of liberation, hey, I can be who I really am. I can be who I've known I was all these years. I also have a nephew who's trans. Just like, wow, here I can be me. What a wonderful thing. And then here come the morality police. Here come the moms for liberty. Here come the Republicans. Oh, no, you don't. You're going to live the way we say you have to live. You're going to be who we say you have to be. And Fox so-called News and the whole right-wing machine and Salem Broadcasting and all these other hate mongers just pitching this stuff. This is the hellish world that Republicans want us to descend into, where hate is again fashionable, where what was done to Matthew Shepard is repeated regularly, where queer people are essentially lynched. And that's not even to begin talking about, their hating on racial and religious minorities. This is just the LGBTQ plus community. But get ready. It's coming. Along those same lines, a couple of kids, young girls, the sunrise ceremony is a very, very significant Apache ceremony. I'll tell you about it after the break. They participated in one. It's a puberty ceremony. And their school kicked them out for participating in satanic rituals. Honest to God. I'll tell you about that after the break, and I'll pick up your calls. Stay with us.